Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the ZD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be counting down the top 20 greatest metal album openers of all time. Of course, like any other list, it's all just my personal opinion, and what I've decided to do here, just to challenge myself, is to limit myself to one pick per band, so you're definitely going to see here some obvious choices by some bands, possibly passed over for my personal preference. Again, all just my opinions here, doing a top 20 instead of a top 10, because this was a very difficult list to put together, but that said, let's get started here with my number 20. Kicking things off at my number 20, I'm going to go with Of Rage and War by Savatage off their album Gutter Ballet. Now, maybe I'm a little bit partial to this record here on this track because it was the first Savatage song I ever heard. When I got into Savatage, this is the first album I listened to, and I was hooked right away on Of Rage and War with that great riff to really, suck you in. And then, of course, you have those awesome vocals by John Oliva, raspy, heavy delivery. I would say prime John Oliva was one of the best, most underrated metal vocalists of the late 80s, in my opinion at least. Does a fantastic job here on this record, especially on Of Rage and War, which is a really memorable chorus. Just a great track here, and again, it was my introduction to the band, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but they're a band, Savatage, that were extremely underrated and should have been a lot bigger than they ended up being, and they're a band that I really need to talk about a lot more, I think, on this channel. They're a band that I really enjoy. I have a majority of their records. I really do like their catalog. I like the stuff they did with John Oliva on lead vocals and also with Zach Stevens, but they're a band that, for whatever reason, I don't talk about as much as I should on this channel, to the point where, I get some people who comment saying, well, don't you like Savatage? And the answer is, yeah, I love Savatage. And Gutter Ballet, my favorite record from them. Just a band I need to talk about a little bit more here on the channel, so definitely wanted to include them here on this list. Kicking us off at number 20, I'm going to go with Of Rage and War. Awesome album opener here for my first Savatage record that I ever listened to. Next at number 19, we have Twist of Cain by Danzig off his self-titled debut record here, That instantly recognizable opening riff, followed by loud, booming drums, kicks off the first track here on this record and begins his solo career in its simplicity but its heaviness. It really does set the tone for the rest of this album, and in the same way, it really sets the tone for the first 4 Danzig solo albums, So, of course, here, in my opinion, Danzig's vocals are fantastic and amazing vocalists, but the chorus is also a total earworm as well. Just a great track here, awesome way to start the record, and really would be the perfect gateway into the first 4 albums in the Danzig catalog as a solo artist, starting here in 1988 with Twist of Cain off his self-titled debut. Next at number 18, The Fight for This Fish is a fight to the death. That's right, I'm going to go with Blood and Thunder by Mastodon off of Leviathan from 2004. Metal and literature always go really well together, including here on Leviathan, based off of Moby Dick, right? Great album from 04 by Mastodon here, starting off with Blood and Thunder. The riffage and irregular drum beats are phenomenal, as is the bridge, and one of the sickest breakdowns around the 130 mark, so really, really great track here. Like I said, I do love the musicianship on this track, and I do think it sets the stage really nicely for the rest of this awesome, awesome concept album. Coming in at number 17 now, I'm going to go with a track from one of my all-time favorite bands, that being Alice in Chains. We have We Die Young from Facelift, the first track from their debut album here in 1990. And it's an interesting track because it's a fast-paced, upbeat kind of a rocker of a song, but the lyrics are, pretty depressing, right? Pretty dark stuff. So it represents Alice in Chains really kind of coming into their own as songwriters, as we would get more of that, dark, depressing lyrics as their discography would go on here. But again, it's a great rocker, really awesome, fast-paced, and a perfect album opener in my opinion. So there's an interesting dichotomy there between the sound of this track and the lyric in this track, so that makes it really interesting in my opinion, and does kind of represent both sides of Alice in Chains and how, the sound of a track and the way it's paced can be deceptive compared to its lyrics. So I think that's really interesting. So that said, coming in at number 17, we have We Die Young, all-time a classic track here by Alice in Chains off their debut Facelift. Proggy but super heavy. Gojira wastes no time getting right down to business with Oroborus. My number 16 here on the list. The opening track from The Way of All Flesh from 2008. Its eclectic, unpredictable riffing throughout is fantastic. And, while it might not be as polished as some other work that would come later on, the rawness of this opening track bleeds right through the record, in my opinion. And the band sound incredibly tight. So that said, coming in at number 16, I'm going to go with Oroborus by Gojira off their 2008 album, The Way of All Flesh. Number 15 is going to go to Overkill by Motorhead. Classic title track here that really saw the band coming into their own on their sophomore record, and this is a record that pretty much birthed speed metal, and the title track is a huge reason why. An absolute classic here. When you think it's over, it starts up again, right? That's Overkill, but fantastic song here. I love the premise of, starting up again, Overkill, all that kind of stuff. I think it's great. The riff is fantastic. Lyrics are really cool. Before I got into Motorhead, my first introduction to this song was through Metallica's cover, which, to be honest, is not that great. Obviously, the original is so much better, but makes for an awesome album opener here. here. A great title track as well from their sophomore record. Just really, really fantastic stuff. Again, extremely influential. It would go on to be extremely influential in the birth of speed metal as well. So Lemmy and Motorhead doing a killer job here with Overkill coming in at number 15 on the list. Number 14, how about Stinkfist by Tool from Einema? Between the great melodic vocal melodies here by Maynard James Keenan and its consistency in the way it builds throughout, as well as the amazing guitar riff, I'm not sure what to rave about first about this track, really. Einema is my favorite Tool record here, and I can't think of a better album opener that'd be more fitting for this record than Stinkfist. It perfectly captures, in my opinion, the restless angst and melodic aggression that the band really tried to go for here on this record, and 100% I think the best choice for an album opener here. Probably one of their best known and recognizable songs, but above all else, I think just a great album opener here that really does get you acclimated to the whole vibe of this record from the beginning here. So that said, coming in at number 14, we have Stinkfist by Tool from Einema. Candlemass' debut album, Epicus Doomicus Metallicus from 1986, is one of the most important doom metal albums of all time. It really does feel like Black Sabbath really started the whole doom metal thing, and then Candlemass came along in the mid-80s and kind of took that torch and ran with it, especially here on their debut record, which kicks off with Solitude. Just a fantastic track in my opinion. Got great booming vocals as well as some really heavy guitar riffs. Doomy stuff here, of course. And Candlemass are another band that I really want to talk about more on the channel, and going to try to do so in the future here. An incredible band, one of the most important doom metal bands of all time, and I really do love just about everything in their catalog, to be honest, including their debut album here, which kicks off with Solitude. Some really awesome lyrics as well. Great delivery, great haunting atmosphere. So, when it comes to some of the best doom metal album openers, I think this definitely has to be on the list here. Got to go with Solitude by Candlemass from their debut record from 1986. So far on this list here, I've talked a lot about tracks that set the tone for the rest of the record, but another great example of that is my number 12 on the list, the great Southern Trendkill by Pantera from 1996, the title track here, which opens the record, and one of the heaviest, blisteringly heavy tracks in the Pantera catalog, in my opinion. You just have raging vocals from Phil Anselmo immediately. It's almost one of those jump scare tracks. You don't know it's coming, but an amazing album opener here, super heavy, and just kind of continuing the progression of that Pantera sound. Like I've mentioned many times on the channel before, in their 90s output, those albums just got heavier and heavier and heavier, and the Great Southern Trendkill saw the band, going up a notch here. It's another level of heaviness, starting with the title track. Awesome work here. It's fast-paced. It's an absolute rager of a track. It's got a great groove to it as well. Awesome work by the Abbots, and you got some thick bass lines as well by Rex Brown. Awesome stuff. Can't complain here. Classic title track, great album opener, my number 12 on the list, The Great Southern Trendkill by Pantera. Sepultura just are not the same without Max Cavalera on lead vocals. His voice was the soundtrack to some of their best work, including the opener here to Chaos AD, my number 11 on the list, Refuse, Resist. With the sound of a heartbeat initially here, it breaks down with an immensely heavy riff and so much pent-up aggression conveyed here by the band, especially in Cavalera's vocals. It sees the band moving in a more groove metal-oriented direction, still with a great mix of thrash and death metal as well. Probably my favorite track from this record. Just an awesome song, and really does make you wish that the Cavaleras would return to Sepultura at some point. Still waiting, still hoping, but I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen, but at least we have the classic material to hold us over with the Cavaleras and Sepultura, including Refuse, Resist. Great album opener to 1993's Chaos AD. Moving into the top 10 now, I'm going to go with Burn by Deep Purple. The first track from the first album with the Mark III lineup. Ian Gillan and Roger Glover were out. In were Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale, and you really can tell they wanted to make their presence felt immediately here with this title track. It's fast-paced, but clocking in at 6 minutes, it's an absolute rager of a song. Got some great guitar work, as always, by Richie Blackmore, an awesome riff. One of the best riffs, hands down, in the Deep Purple catalog, in my opinion, is the one on Burn. Awesome stuff here. It's got an amazing groove to it as well, and it's one of those tracks that if you're driving, I definitely don't recommend you put it on because it'll definitely make you speed. Awesome stuff here. And when it comes to Deep Purple, there were a whole bunch of album openers I could have gone with, including tracks like Speed King or Knocking at Your Back Door, but for me personally, I wanted to go here with Burn, one of my all-time favorite Deep Purple tracks, and in my opinion, one of the all-time best title tracks as well. The first track from the Mark III lineup here, awesome title track, like I said. Burn coming in at number 10 on the list, getting us started in the top 10. Number 9 is going to go to Symbolic by Death, the title track to their best album from 1995. Their best album in my opinion, but also in the opinions of many. I mean, when you look at this record here in Symbolic, it's just essential death track after essential death track. Everything is amazing on this record. Not a bad song on here. All killer, no filler, as they say. But Symbolic starts things off. You get this menacing riff, really heavy stuff that does kind of, really set the vibe for the rest of the record, which is what I look for and what makes a great title track. It's one of those components that I'm definitely looking for this list, right? Symbolic is a fantastic track. I had to include Death on this list, and it's not just because, it's easy to throw Death on a list when you want to include some death metal here because they're a gateway band or whatever you want to call it. It's because they're that good, and their material still holds up, regardless of, how long they've been defunct and how many new death metal bands have come and gone since then. Death is, still the classic stuff, and you really can't go against something like Symbolic. Incredible track, an incredible album as well. Some of Chuck Schuldiner best work, who, like I've said many times on the channel, was a musical genius who we lost way too soon, but does a fantastic job here on Symbolic, the title track and the album opener to perhaps their best work from 1995. Why not go with a little bit more death metal here on this list at number 8, Hammer Smashed Face by Cannibal Corpse, which is considered by a lot of people to be the death metal song. It's probably Cannibal Corpse's best known track, right? It's a real headbanger of a song here with menacing vocals by Chris Barnes, and it's a really tough pick between Chris Barnes and Corpse Grinder, between who is the best Cannibal Corpse vocalist. I think they both brought something great to the table, although, I think the first few records with Barnes is probably their best material. I do love Corpse Grinder as well, so really hard to choose there, but no denying that Barnes does a fantastic job here on this track. Super, super heavy stuff, considered by many to be the death metal track. I saw somebody compare it to, it's their version of Freebird, right? It's Leonard Skinner's Freebird. It's kind of like Cannibal Corpse's version of Freebird, which I can definitely see that. It's just that caliber of a track. So for me, I had to include it here on the list. Figured why not go back-to-back death metal here with Hammer Smashed Face by Cannibal Corpse coming in at number 8 here on the list. Like I mentioned at the top of the video here, my personal preferences were going to come into play on this list and maybe take the place of some of the more predictable entries here. So that said, next up here, I'm going to go with Slayer, and there were a lot of album openers. I could have gone with Slayer. They have a great catalog full of awesome album openers. I could have gone with South of Heaven. I could have gone with Angel of Death, which is probably the obvious choice. Heck, I could have even gone with Bitter Peace from Diabolus and Musica, because I like that song. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with War Ensemble here from Seasons in the Abyss. It's my favorite Slayer album opener. It's aggressive, it's fast-paced, it's thrashy. You've got some unrelenting vocals here by Tom Araya. Just awesome, awesome stuff. Can't go against this track. In my opinion, it's their best album opener, and I do enjoy it more than Angel of Death, even though, of course, Angel of Death is an iconic track, but maybe I've just heard that song one too many times and gravitate a little bit more towards War Ensemble. Nonetheless, though, it's classic Slayer throughout here, and an awesome way to kick off one of my favorite albums from them, Seasons in the Abyss from 1990. Next at number 6, how about Mercyful Fate and Evil off the album Melissa here. Incredible track to start things off. Evil has got this awesome riff to it, got some great, riffage and guitar work here by Sherman and Denner. Also, King Diamond on lead vocals, laying down some iconic, instantly recognizable, memorable vocal tracks here on this song. Really cool lyrics as well. This was the first Mercyful Fate song that I ever heard, and so it really kind of got me hooked right away. And then, of course, the rest of this album here is incredible as well. Curse of the Pharaohs, Into the Coven, At the Sound of the Demon Bell, Melissa. But in my opinion, the best track on this album has got to be the album opener, Evil. Awesome, awesome stuff here, and it's an even better live track in my opinion. So that's it at number 6. Let's go with Evil by Mercyful Fate off of Melissa from 1983. Again, maybe a little bit of an unpredictable pick here, because I think when it comes to, the best Judas Priest album opener, a lot of people are going to immediately say Painkiller, and I can't blame you. I love Painkiller, one of my all-time favorite Priest tracks, an absolute metal essential, no doubt. But for me personally, coming in at number 5 here, I'm going to go with Hellion, Electric Eye, from Screaming for Vengeance from 1982. It's my favorite Priest song of all time. Electric Eye is just an incredible track in my opinion. I love Halford's vocals on here. I love the otherworldly lyrics as well, very futuristic kind of a vibe to it. I just think this is a fantastic track here, and Screaming for Vengeance is, in my opinion, their best album. That's something that changes occasionally, right? My favorite Priest album can vary at times because they have a lot of great records, but I think when it comes down to it, Screaming for Vengeance is iconic, it's a classic, and Electric Eye is just a fantastic way to open it up here. Now, if you want to get technical, Hellion is the first track on this album, and that's just a brief instrumental, but it goes right into Electric Eye, so I do kind of lump them together. It's Hellion / Electric Eye, right? They're kind of meant to go together, so if you want to get technical, maybe it's not the first song on the record. So if that's the case, then sure, put Painkiller here in this spot. But for me, my personal favorite Priest song is Electric Eye, and I do kind of, blend it together with Hellion, consider it to be one piece altogether here, even if it is two separate tracks. So that said, when it comes to some of the best album openers in metal history, kicking us off in the top 5, I have to go with Hellion, Electric Eye here, by Judas Priest from Screaming for Vengeance from 1982. It's about time for a Metallica entry here on this list. Let's go with Battery off of Master of Puppets from 1986. I mean, I could have chosen a whole bunch of, great Metallica album openers. There's Fight Fire with Fire, you've got Hit the Lights, of course, Blackened as well. I could even go with Enter Sandman, even though that probably wouldn't be a very popular decision, but you can't match the sheer power of Battery, an incredible album opener here to Master of Puppets that just, it's unrelenting in its heaviness throughout. The lyrics are really cool. It's even better live as well, but just a super heavy track. It's full of aggression and energy and is the perfect album opener, I think, for any Metallica record as far as I'm concerned. And they have, again, a lot of great album openers out there, but gotta go with Battery here at number 4 from Master of Puppets from 1986. Awesome work here by Metallica. Master of Puppets is regarded by many of you their best album. For me personally, I think my favorite's got to be Ride the Lightning, but Master of Puppets is a very close second, and Battery has a lot to do with that as to why I'd rank it so high on the list. An incredible record here, not a bad song on it. It starts with Battery. Awesome album opener. Top 3 now. For my number 3, I'm going to go with Holy Wars, The Punishment Due by Megadeth from Rust in Peace. Rust in Peace was the album where Megadeth really came into their own and found themselves and found, the right rhythm in their sound, right? They really hit their stride here on this record is what I'm trying to say. And it starts off with Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, the best Megadeth song of all time, in my opinion. I mean, just fantastic stuff. The riffs are amazing. Dave Mustaine here proving to be an absolute riff machine. Got some awesome drumming by Nick Menza. It's the classic lineup of Megadeth here. The Rust in Peace lineup of Mustaine, Ellefson, Menza, and Friedman here at their best, firing on all cylinders, in my opinion. Holy Wars is the essential Megadeth track that if I was showing somebody Megadeth for the first time, this is what I would play them. And, just a great album opener here to Rust in Peace, which from top to bottom is an amazing record. But Holy Wars, the best song on the album, and for my money, the best Megadeth song of all time. Another band with a ton of great album openers is Black Sabbath, and I was very much on the fence. Should I go with War Pigs or should I go with self-titled Black Sabbath from their debut? But I decided to go with Black Sabbath here, self-titled, from the album Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath, yada yada yada, because, when it comes to some of the best album openers in metal history, and especially album openers that set the tone and the pacing and the vibe and the atmosphere for the rest of the record to come, it's hard to find a better suited track like that than Black Sabbath here. It's ominous, it's dark, it's haunting, it's totally different from anything that anybody else was doing at the time as well. So when you factor in the originality as well, it's a pretty untouchable track in just about every respect. Black Sabbath right here is a quintessential Sabbath track. Starts off the record here, which would continue with The Wizard and NIB, Wicked World, Bitterfinger, Sleeping Village, all these iconic tracks. We got some great riffing going on by Tony Iommi, but the best on this record has to be the title track to start things off. You've got those really, really ominous vocals here delivered by Ozzy, some really interesting lyricism going on as well, which was designed to scare the heck out of anybody at the time, because Sabbath were something totally different. They were an entity operating entirely on their own. Nobody was doing anything close to what Black Sabbath were doing, and you better believe nobody had ever written music like the title track to this record here, making for a killer album opener, in my opinion. Gotta go with Self-Titled by Black Sabbath. Before I get to my number 1 pick here, I do have a handful of honorable mentions. First, want to go with Among the Living by Anthrax. Honorable mentions here go out to Stand Up and Shout by Dio, The Heretic, The Lost Child by Wasp. Also, you have Black Metal by Venom and Clenching the Fists of Dissent by Machine Head. All awesome album openers here, but I can only fit 20 on the list. Realistically, I could probably have stretched this out to a top 30 with all the great album openers out there, but I think 20 is a good number, so I can only fit 20 on the list here today, but there are a lot of fantastic metal album openers out there. I know I couldn't get to all of them, but I think that, when it comes to covering some of the best album openers in metal history, I've at least scratched the surface, at the very least. But coming in at number 1, probably predictably so, considering the thumbnail and the shirt that I'm wearing here, I have to go with Aces High by Iron Maiden. Very, very difficult, for this list to pick one from each band, because there are a lot of bands that have a lot of iconic album openers, but Iron Maiden are one of those groups that made a theme throughout their entire catalog of always kicking off their records with something fast-paced, something powerful and energetic, always opening their albums with, something either really experimental and different that was at the tone for the album, or something that was just a straight-up rocker, headbanger of a track, and Aces High is kind of both. That's why I decided to go with it here. I consider it to be the ultimate album opener and the ultimate live set opener as well. You know, it's a fantastic track live, great. You know, whenever I've seen them performing live and they open with Aces High, it's always a highlight of the show, and probably the best version of Aces High live is from Live After Death, but the studio version is awesome as well here. Great way to kick off Power Slave, and then, of course, to follow it, you have 2 Minutes to Midnight, so it kind of makes for a fantastic 1-2 punch there in the Maiden catalog, and again, Maiden have so many awesome album openers, but when it comes to the best, I gotta go with Aces High from Power Slave. Just awesome stuff, high energy, high octane, full of aggression here, and just classic Maiden from top to bottom. Aces High, in my opinion, the best metal album opener of all time. So that wraps up my list of the top 20 greatest metal album openers of all time. Again, just my opinion. You can see that list right over here. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you never miss a new upload. Be sure to share this video out, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you guys have social media. It's greatly appreciated. And please let me know down in the comment section below, what are some of your favorite metal album openers of all time? I want to hear from you. And would you be interested in seeing a sequel to this video here, maybe talking about some of the best rock album openers as well? I purposely only did metal here to leave the door open to maybe do a rock sequel in the future. So please let me know down in the comment section below if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.